Everyone. It looks like it's 9:03 and I believe we had the bulk of everyone here. Thank you again for joining us. Today we have with us Richard Roman, who is the District Executive of PennDOT District 4, and Susan Hazelton, who is the Assistant District Executive of PennDOT District 4. Today they'll be speaking on the Federal Infrastructure Act and Jobs Act and what that means for Northeastern Pennsylvania, specifically in District 4, and talking a little bit about the Metropolitan Planning Organization and how projects move between that. So Richard and Susan, thank you again for joining us, and I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Ben. We're going to have Susan go first and give everybody a primer, if you will, on the planning process for federal transportation dollars, the MPO, RPO scenario. As we were talking with Tom here before we started, that could probably be an 8-hour session. So she's going to cram it all into 5 or 10 minutes. So we'll all be experts at about 9:15 a.m. and then I'll take it from there. So I'll turn it over to Susan. And before we do start, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I have my green on today, so enjoy the day there.
And good morning, everyone. Thank you. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I kind of try to get the green, but it's kind of teal, but it's close. Thank you for allowing me to present today. Today I'll be talking about transportation planning and the requirements of the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, long-range transportation planning, the advancement of projects from planning to construction, and the federal and state requirements involved in these planning processes. So planning for transportation begins with our planning partners. The Federal Highway Act in 1962 required urbanized areas to establish metropolitan planning organizations. We refer to them as MPOs. The MPO is a body that determines how all federal and state highway and bridge funds are allocated. In 1964, the two counties of Lackawanna and Luzerne County formed the Llts, Metropolitan Planning Organization. We refer to them as LLTS. LLTS is responsible for planning for the assets, roadways and bridges, and how they support other modes such as bicycle, pedestrian, rail, freight, and aviation. The MPO coordinates its plans with the public. The MPO receives input from the public. It is the LLTS MPO in our case that receives candidate projects and prioritizes projects for consideration for transportation funding. The LLTS MPO consists of 3 committees: the Transportation Advisory Committee, the Technical Committee, and the Coordinating Committee. These committees consist of a variety of interests, such as environmental, business and industry, trucking, and rail, amongst others. The Coordinating Committee is the executive committee of the MPO that approves all actions of the MPO. I'll switch over to long-range transportation planning. Long-range transportation plans is a 25-year plan. It is developed for the two counties of Lackawanna and Luzerne County by the LLTS MPO. The long-range transportation plan guides the area decision makers with an examination of the region's existing transportation systems, the driving forces affecting its long-term performance, and the strategic directions and investments needed. Requirements of the long-range plan are: it must be fiscally constrained, which means that the LLTS MPO cannot plan to spend more money than they can reasonably anticipate receiving. By federal regulation, all costs and revenues must be based on data reflecting the existing situation and historic trends. The LLTS MPO board is responsible for adopting and approving the plan and any amendments to the plan. The plan must be updated every 5 years. The long-range transportation plan must be project-specific. It must be coordinated with local comprehensive plans. It is to involve all modes of transportation, and it must be developed from public input. The 2045 Long-Range Transportation Plan was adopted by Llts Coordinating Committee at their February 3rd, 2021 meeting. So again, that update will not be required again until 2026. The recently passed federal bill, the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act, will allow for projects on the long-range transportation plan to be brought forward from outer years and addressed sooner. The next step in the planning process is what is referred to as a 12-year plan. This is a state requirement based on the Act 20 of 1970. This is not a federal requirement. It's unique to Pennsylvania, but it's for the purpose of bringing that 25-year plan forward into a 12-year scenario. It holds 3 segments of 4 years, and it's approved by our State Transportation Commission. The first 4 years of that 12-year plan is referred to as the Transportation Improvement Program. We refer to that as a TIP or a TIP. The TIP is the region's comprehensive 4-year plan for spending both federal and state transportation funds for prioritized projects and programs. Projects have to be on the TIP to be eligible for today's expenditure of federal funding. TIP requirements, it's 4 years in length. It's composed of highway and transit projects. It must be fiscally constrained by year. The TIP has to be updated every 2 years. Currently, the Llts MPO is underway with the 2023 update. 2023 update will begin once adopted on October 1st of this year. The TIP must conform to air quality standards established by the Clean Air Act. The public must be involved in this TIP development. And this TIP is approved by FHWA, FTA, in consultation with the EPA. Development of the TIPs must be coordinated with the State Transportation Commission and elected officials. The TIP is to maintain focus on system preservation, to keep the good, good. The Federal Highway Act encourages states to achieve and sustain a state of good repair over the life cycle of our transportation assets. Finally, a statewide program developed in 2005 is the Interstate Program. The Interstate Program is a separate program that was developed, and it's managed based on statewide needs and thus statewide competition. Fortunately, District 4 has been successful in receiving funding for our much needed projects. District 4 holds a large portion of the Interstate Program currently, providing funding to reconstruct, upgrade, and modernize the interstates of 80, 81, 84, and 380. In Lackawanna and Luzerne County, 47% of the interstates will be reconstructed over the next 8 to 10 years. So we have, in summary, we have 2 programs that will affect Lackawanna and Luzerne County. It is the regional program that's adopted and approved by the Llts MPO. And in addition, the interstate program, that's primary concentration is for the interstate. Again, the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act will provide for funding that will allow projects that have been developed and prioritized and programmed on the long-range transportation plan to move forward through these stages of the 12-year plan and the TIP, and to be constructed sooner than what was anticipated in the longer range plan. Rich, I could turn it over to you now. think that was 9:13. That was pretty good.
Good time.
Damn good.
Ben and Tom, do you want to open it up for any questions for Susan at all, or do we want to wait till the end? Or because I'm going to kind of go a different direction with the bill, but I don't know what you think about Q&A right now.
Lana's the boss now. I'm just
Okay.
I'm just a
Whoever-
facilitator.
Yeah.
I think we keep going. I'd like to hear from you, Rich.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Susan, for that. You know, when I asked Susan to kind of give a 5 or 10 minute update on the MPO and the planning process, I realized I was trying to cram 20 pounds into a 5-pound bag, because I think about it, we have 6 people on our staff in District 4, and that is their full-time job, is managing the programs, interactions with the planning partners, updating the tips, making sure projects are there. And then we're all working with, in this case, Luzerne and Lackawanna County planning organizations internal to the counties. So it is a lot of staff and a lot of time, and you could probably take all that staff and triple it, and that's how many people are working on it in Harrisburg from a statewide perspective. So it's a lot to do, and to just cram it all in the 10 minutes, I know I was giving Susan a heavy lift there, but one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this is because we are really at some unprecedented times here with funding of transportation in our country. And I guess how I would start is, if anybody saw 60 Minutes on Sunday night, the first session was with Senator Buttigieg, and all he did was talk about the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act. So if you watched him on Sunday, I guess you don't have to listen to me right now, because I took a lot of notes when I was watching the show, so I'm a 60 Minutes fan. But they were talking about the need to fund transportation and infrastructure in our country, which we really haven't done to a large scale or to a scale like this since the Eisenhower Interstate Act back in the 50s and 60s. So I also am going to talk about a lot of numbers up front to just kind of give you what this bill means for Pennsylvania. And you heard Susan refer to it as the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act, or the IIJA. We're also being told now from DC that we have to refer to it as the bill, BIL, which is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. But if you hear IIJA or BIL, it's the same thing. I think some of it's just trying to get the word out to folks to what it is. But this bill means a lot to the Commonwealth, all across all types of infrastructure. And I'm going to touch a little bit on the highways and bridges in a little bit, but I do want to highlight some other things that we know that are coming to Pennsylvania. Again, I apologize for the list of numbers that are coming, but through this federal infrastructure bill, Pennsylvania over the next 5 years is going to be receiving an additional $2.8 billion for transit. We're going to be receiving $171 million for electronic vehicle charging stations. And really what that is building out the infrastructure for electric vehicles, and to have charging stations along interstates and expressways. And, you know, as we talk internally here, we think electric vehicles are going to be our future, but I kind of view it as, but unless you could have a charging station at every Sheetz or Turkey Hill or Wawa, you know, it's not really going to go into the fabric of our society. So there's a lot of money for charging stations to build that infrastructure to prepare for the change in our vehicle fleet. There's $100 million coming to Pennsylvania for high-speed internet to the rural parts of our Commonwealth, where people still don't have access to high-speed or broadband internet. There's $265 million coming to reduce transportation-related emissions. As Susan mentioned, a lot of our planning has to be contained through congestion mitigation and air quality, and we have to make sure that we're doing the best we can to reduce that. There's $49 million to protect against wildfires in Pennsylvania. There's $26 million to protect against cyber attacks that are coming to the Commonwealth. there's $1.4 billion coming to upgrade the infrastructure related to water. I know the president has mentioned about the replacement of lead pipes and other water infrastructure systems, so that's coming our way. There's $355 million coming for airport infrastructure improvements. And then there's $3 billion coming to Pennsylvania for abandoned mine reclamation improvement projects. So all of this is over a period of time. It's not all in 1 year, but and there's more to it. I could probably go on for 2 more pages of all the line items of things that are coming to Pennsylvania. But this is, I think when people think of infrastructure, we always go to roads and bridges, but you know, there's airport infrastructure, there's building out infrastructure for new vehicles, there's high-speed internet, water infrastructure. So there's a lot of things that are coming this way. And this bill, I think, is good for Pennsylvania as a whole as far as getting funds from Washington. I'm not going to say whether this is good or bad or political side, but from just the pure number standpoint, there's a lot of things that are coming to Pennsylvania. But with all that, my remarks are going to focus on really what's coming next is we are getting $4 billion additional dollars over 5 years for highways and bridges in Pennsylvania. And that's really my purview. That first list of things, Susan and I and our team, we really don't focus on too much, maybe some transit and some other items there, but you know, our focus is going to be on the $4 billion additional dollars that we're getting over 5 years. So to put that into context, if there wasn't a federal infrastructure bill over the next 5 years, Pennsylvania would normally receive about $9 million in federal transportation dollars for highway and bridges. That's the current continuing resolution from the federal budget. That's the current funding levels. So now with this bill, we're going to go up to $13 billion over the next 5 years for highways and bridge transportations. And for us, that is much needed. And it's something that we have been waiting for a long time. Those of you that are familiar with the last time Pennsylvania funded transportation, Act 89, which was in 2013 and 14, I know a lot of the discussion was, you know, Pennsylvania did its part. Now we're waiting for the federal government to do its. And when you think of the gas tax that we pay, and that is a hot topic a lot of times, especially now with the price of fuel, the federal gas tax has been at the same level since around 1993. I think it's around 18.5 cents per gallon. So it really hasn't changed much in the last almost 30 years now. So we're happy to see this additional funding coming our way. As Susan mentioned, we have to work through our planning process in each district. So that $4 billion is divided through 23 MPOs and RPOs across the Commonwealth. So when you start with the high number and start dividing it back down, you know, where I'm kind of going, what does it mean for us? So you take the $4 billion over 5 years, it's divided among the planning partners based on a formula that is kind of worked on by a group of people that are including MPO staff from across Pennsylvania, our staff as well, and Federal Highway Administration. For the planning partners that make up District 4, which is 6 counties, and for those of you that don't know, the 6 counties are Lackawanna and Luzerne, naturally, Susquehanna and Wyoming, Wayne and Pike. Over the next 5 years, these planning partners are going to get an additional $266 million for roadway improvements. And for us specifically, for Lackawanna and Luzerne County, we are going to receive $109 million in additional funds over the next 5 years. So that's roughly an increase of $20 million per year. Outside of this area and for this group, Pike County is going to receive about $9 million over 5 years. Susquehanna and Wyoming counties are going to receive $34 million over 5 years. And then Wayne County is going to receive about $9 million over the 5 years. So we are excited to get these funds and really put them to work. But for us, again, for Lackawanna and Luzerne, I'll get more specific now. That equates to about $20 million additional federal funds each year. And the way our financial guidance has been laid out, and that's put together with our planning partners, like I said, and others, it equates to about $12 million a year towards highway improvements and about $8 million a year towards bridge improvements. But the other benefit is, and Susan mentioned this, the other pot of planning funds are the interstate funds. And District 4 is a district that has the most amount of interstate miles as compared to any district in the Commonwealth. We have 185 linear miles of interstate in our 6 counties. Now, that doesn't mean we have the most traffic. I think we all know Philadelphia and Pittsburgh has more traffic, but when you just look at the length of the system, we have the longest system of interstate. So that means we have really the most work to be done. And for us specifically, over the next 10 to 12 years, we have $2.8 billion of interstate projects that are planned and on the drawing boards to be done. And of that 2.8 billion, $1.2 billion is in Lackawanna and Luzerne County. As you know, if you're in the area, over the last, I'll say 10 to 12 years, we have been rebuilding Interstate 84, which was necessary, and we're on our last 2 sections of rebuilding it. And now our focus is going to be back on Interstate 81, which I think for those of you that are in the area know that it needs to be done. So we have projects in place to rebuild from basically lower Luzerne County all the way up through Luzerne into Lackawanna and into Susquehanna County up to the New York border. So you're going to see a lot of work on Interstate 81 over the next 8 to 10 years. And again, to repeat, I think for those of us that are in the area, me especially, I drive from Hazelton to Dunmore to get to the office, so I see it live and in color every day. And my staff knows it because when I come in and I have a list of items for them to work on, they know it. But it's much needed, and we're grateful for it. And like I said, we have a lot of projects that are already in design, so we're working our way towards construction. But these are massive projects. We have a project on Interstate 81 in the Nanacoke area that's called Partnership 81, which is a P3 project, which will go from pretty much the bottom of the Ashley Plains up through, I think, to almost the casino. Susan, am I generally right? That's going to hopefully widen the interstate to 3 lanes in each area, in each direction. And we're working through the process to hopefully be in construction in 25 or 26, so 2 or 3 years away. We have another project in Lackawanna County to rebuild Interstate 81 from the Music exit to Scranton. And that will be another project that will widen the interstate to 6 lanes in each direction and realign some of our interchanges, especially the newly named Biden Expressway, which is a left exit. We're going to redesign it to more normally as a right exit. But these jobs, just those 2 projects in and of itself, probably are $600 to $700 million for just the 2 projects. That's how much it costs to reconstruct and widen interstate facilities while maintaining 2 lanes of traffic. That is what the driver is of the cost. You know, we can't close down the road and rebuild it. We have to rebuild it while it's open and traffic's using it. So when I explain it to folks, you know, we have to fix a flat tire while the car is still moving. And that's why things take a lot of funds to do. So we're excited. Plus, even projects that are going to be starting this year, north of Dunmore, we're going to be doing 15 miles of interstate paving up to the Susquehanna County line. We have some concrete improvements on Interstate 81 down by the Rest area, Dorrance, New Angola area. So we have a lot of interim treatment projects and also some big projects. So this bill is allowing us not only to leverage the additional funds that the MPO is getting, but it's also going to help us leverage the additional interstate funds that the Commonwealth is receiving. So we are very proud of that. Susan is a big driver for our success on the interstate. She's on our Interstate Steering Committee, which is a statewide committee, and she is a great advocate for this area, and I'm really indebted to her, because when you think of $2.8 billion over the next 10 to 12 years is reserved for our interstates in District 4. And half of that is in Lackawanna and Luzerne County. So that's a great thing to have. And Susan knows I'm an impatient person. I wish all the projects were in construction now, but I know things take time, and we're working through that. But really grateful for the federal infrastructure to allow us to get to these projects that I think you all know by driving it, you know, the seat of the pants type of approach of the highway. You know it needs to be done. So with these projects, with this bill, excuse me, we're able to accelerate other projects like we're doing now. We're able to enhance the scope of work. And as Susan mentioned, one of the things that I made clear to the folks when we did the Scranton presentation that I will today is there's not a lot of new projects that are going to be done with this federal bill, because all the projects have to be on the long range plan, right? So when you get federal dollars, I think we all know this, when you get federal dollars, you also get federal requirements, right? They control the purse string. So there's not a lot of, hey, let's add more projects. They're going to say, we laid out a process for planning projects through the MPO and through the public. You put those projects on your long range plan. They're the ones that you could spend money on. So there's not a lot of, hey, let's do this one, let's do that one. It has to be what's on the list, and you're able to move those up. Now, what's great with this is if we're able to move projects up, we're able to reload projects on the back end and put more projects on the long range plan. So that also frees up space on the planning side of our business to do work. So we were able to get to those projects. But one of the things that Susan said, you know, we rely on a lot of public input through the planning process. And to be honest, we don't get a lot of it, because I don't think people are generally excited about going to an MPO meeting, know what it is, are involved in it. But we have a lot of folks. I mean, the mayor of Hazelton has a representative, mayor of Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, the counties are represented, the planning partner, the planning organizations in the county. So they're there, but you know, we would love to get more public involvement in the planning process. And I see there's a hand raised by Representative Pashinsky. Am I right?
That's correct. Let me just get this thing going here. I want you to know, first of all, to all of you, again, St. Patrick's Day, number one. Number two, the Polish guy by the name of Tom down there, he's still going to celebrate it, even though. How are you, Tommy? Good to see you. And I have to tell you, this is the most exciting meeting I've attended in decades. So you guys are terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your good work. Rick, you know, I've enjoyed the conversations we've had and discussing what's needed. This is exciting that we have this new money, and that's why I wanted to listen in today to get an idea of how this was all going to, you know, take place. And it is exciting that we have this new money. Knowing that, I didn't realize that the rule was that any of this money has to be spent for the projects that was in your 25-year plan, et cetera. So that's good. And then now you're opened up for new planning going forward. I have a couple questions. Number one, I don't know whether you're aware of it, but I've been involved in the National Infrastructure Bank program that we've been trying to get the federal legislature to pass, House Resolution 3339. Now, this is like the old Roosevelt plan or Lincoln, where it's private money that is backed by treasury notes. So we're looking at something, an estimate of $5 trillion, $5 trillion. Never thought we'd be talking in T's. Yeah, really. It's only a few years ago when they came to me. In fact, it was about 3 years ago, and they said, you know, we want to do this plan. It's like $4 or $5 trillion. And when they said that, I thought, oh my God, where are we going to get this money? But as I began to learn more and more about it, I began to get pretty excited because up until Biden and his IIJA plan, there was no money for infrastructure. And as you all pointed out, we drive the interstate on a regular basis. We see where there's problems and where there's areas that have to be funded. So are any of you familiar with the National Infrastructure Bank of Roosevelt at all? Just by a show of hands, if you are. Okay, so there's a lot of work that has to be done, but this is private money. According to the way the organization has planned it, Pennsylvania would actually get $220 billion if that plan was initiated. So just keep that in the back of your mind, and I'm going to continue to work on that. But I'm very happy to see what work you've done. Now I know that we can find out exactly what plans are in order. What's the first one that we would attempt, second one, et cetera. And the question that I have is, how would rail, the improvement of rail, whether it be transport or whether it be for passengers service, how would that help improve your interstates, our interstates, and maybe your plans going forward?
That's a great question, Eddie. Rick?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I listed some of the things, and I think the first number I used was 2.8 billion for transit. And some of that is going to go for rail. And I think there are some line items specifically for Amtrak. To me, I think that could be a great thing for this area, because I think that would bring a lot more people into the area and maybe work in larger areas like New York City or Philadelphia, and have them live in our area with our quality of life and our tax base. I think that's great. I know we've been talking a lot about the Scranton to Hoboken line, and reinvigorating that. and I think we all know with the president who's a fan of Amtrak, if we don't do it now, it's never going to happen. So I think with this bill, I think there's going to be a lot of things that get started as it relates to passenger rail transit. Again, I've seen some things, Scranton to Philadelphia, Scranton to New York. I know they're looking at Harrisburg to Pittsburgh doing another line. I think there's already one and maybe another. So to me, I think that just gives people that freedom to live where they want and maybe work in other areas and get the benefit of both things. But just like with our projects, putting in a new rail line is not just, you're not going to break ground next summer, right? It takes time. They have environmental concerns and all those things, but it's exciting to see that we're going to get started on it, which I think is great.
Thanks, Eddie. And that's a really good point, Eddie. And I'm glad that you got Rich to develop that a little bit. Lana, I think Representative Mike Carroll's also on. Mike, do you want to throw anything in here before Rich goes on with the rest of the presentation, just to sort of give us your perspective on what's going on with this money in Harrisburg?
Well, first time I'll start by saying that PennDOT District 4 does a really good job. Rich and his team are professional and capable of making sure our projects get delivered well, and I thank them for their leadership for our region. The federal infrastructure bill was an important bill. I know Rich didn't want to talk about the political side, so I will. If I were a member of Congress, I would have been a yes vote. It would have taken a third of a second to know I was a yes. But I think the context that Rich tried to lay out is important. Even though I would have voted for it, and it was smart that it became law, it does not solve every problem that we have in the world of transportation, especially when it comes to roads and bridges. The need is tremendous. And so the infrastructure bill is a giant step in the right direction. It'd be smart in Pennsylvania if we protected more of our motor license fund dollars from going to the state police and the other diversions that we have with respect to some of those dollars. And I'd like to see Pennsylvania be more aggressive in adding to the PennDOT program annually. So when Rich did the math and he started with the big number, $4 billion over 5 years, and you start dividing it by the 5 years, and then you divide it by the MPOs and RPOs, the numbers are modest, but they're important. And so I will say that in its totality, it'll be a help, but we still have challenges before us. And I'll end by saying one of the other challenges that we have before us is the obligation that we have with county and municipal assets, especially county and municipal bridges. The bridge that collapsed in Pittsburgh was either an Allegheny County bridge or a City of Pittsburgh bridge, I forget which, but it wasn't PennDOT's bridge. And it highlights the fact that we have those kinds of bridges in our region. Specifically, we have the county bridge over the Susquehanna River in Pittston that's currently closed. There's a need to replace the bridge in Nanticoke, also a county bridge. So the needs are tremendous. The federal funds are a giant step in the right direction, but we need to do more. And not to open a sore subject, but doing more part includes the tolling of the 9 bridges across the state. And that is a function of the need that PennDOT has to direct more dollars into the motor license fund, especially when Rich and his team start doing interstate projects that are really expensive. It limits our ability to do projects on some of our other roads, including our SRs, which PennDOT has more miles of SRs than almost any other state in the nation. By any measure, those SRs, the 4-digit roads, would be local or county bridges in any other state, but PennDOT is responsible for them. I'll end by giving you the example that we have an SR in Jenkins Township in Luzerne County. That's a dead end 1 mile. It's a state highway. It shouldn't be a state highway. That should be a local road. And we have too many examples of that. So I'll stop, Tom. Thanks for the opportunity.
You know what, Michael, thank you for your candor. You've always been very straightforward and we appreciate that. As the chairman, minority chairman of the Senate or the House Transportation Committee, you've been unbelievably good to us. We're going to miss you. If everybody doesn't know, Mike is retiring at the end of this term. But Michael, thank you. And Eddie, always, you're going to be there for us, and we're going to need you to continue to champion our causes here in Luzerne and Lackawanna County and all of Northeastern Pennsylvania. So I want to get back to Rich because I know we have a limited time here. Guys, I really appreciate your input. Lon, I'm sorry I'm taking over here a little bit, but
no, it's okay, Tom. But Representative Boback is here too. While the
good.
electeds are speaking, if she wanted to comment, I think now would be appropriate.
That's right. I didn't see her. Thank you. Hi. How are you, Karen?
I am fine, thank you. Just to comment, there's never enough money, and I'm thrilled with what will be infused into our area. Thanks, Rich, but never enough. And I keep on thinking of the roads and the potholes, and this is down the road that the money will start to trickle in. But the here and now, we are bombarded with all of the complaints. And how do you keep up with that? Rich, God bless you, because your staff is tremendous and they're always on top of these things. But my question, I guess, centers around what kind of substance can we put on the road, with all the money coming in, that is not going to allow this to happen. Years ago, it seemed the substance was much stronger and we just didn't have the problems that we have today. Or is it that the vehicles are heavier? I don't know, Rich. Why more now than ever?
And I could answer that, Tom and Alana, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, right now, we're going through a little bit of a shift in the work that we do on the maintenance side of our house here in District 4, and unfortunately, my view of it is, in all honesty, and I hope some candor, is that we deferred a lot of maintenance activities, unfortunately, over the past decade or so, and roads only have a certain amount of lifespan. When you look at this interstate system that was built in '65. It's time to be rebuilt. When you look at a lot of our roads, like Representative Carroll mentioned, that are back roads, farm roads that were really incorporated into the state's inventory. When Governor Pinchot in 1930s wanted to get the farmers out of the mud, the state took a lot of those roads over, and they ended up just being pie crust roads, which just means we put a little bit on top of a little bit on top of a little bit. And right now we are refocusing our efforts on the maintenance activities in our district. We're focusing on base repair, pothole patching, sealing, crack sealing, seal coat work. And we have a plan in place over the next 4 or 5 years to kind of get back to a level that this district should be at. And hopefully we'll see less potholes. There's always going to be potholes because there's a couple things we can't overcome, and some of that is physics. When you think it was 15 degrees on Saturday and it was 72 yesterday, right? We have a lot of those freeze and thaw, and with expansion and contraction of materials, that's always going to be here. My goal is to make it be less here, if you hear me. And
Good
that's
luck
our
with that.
plan. But I don't blame materials. I don't blame different asphalt. Sometimes the blame is the person in the mirror, and that's what we're doing here in District 4. And we have the right people and plans in place along design, construction, and maintenance to get back to a place where we should be over the next 4 to 5 years.
Great. Lana, thanks for catching that. I did not see Karen there. Karen, thank you. Karen has been a key supporter, and some of the votes she's given in Harrisburg, along with Mike and Eddie and others, have been tremendous in really supporting our transportation needs. So with those questions, Rich, I'm sure you have some more stuff you were
I have a couple things, and then we could open up for some Q&A or whatever the group wants. But again, what we're excited about is with these funds, hopefully we're able to reduce some of that backlog on our long-range plan and then bring on some new projects. But again, that's where we're going to need public participation at the MPO meetings, right? We're going to need people coming in and saying, hey, we need to do this, do this, do this, because that's how the federal government views every state's list to do when there's funds that come. So we need to make sure that we're getting those lists properly. That $4 billion over 5 years is going to equate to about $2.3 billion for highways and about $1.6 billion for bridges. And that's much needed for our area. But as Representative Carroll mentioned, we could always use some more. So what does that mean for us here locally? I'm going to list some specific projects in Lackawanna and Luzerne that are going to be moving forward because of this. The first one is Route 6, the Governor Casey Highway in Lackawanna County. That's a job that is the first, if you remember the Lackawanna Valley Industrial Highway project in the mid-90s, and this was built between Dunmore to Carbondale. This is the first time we're getting back to do an improvement on this road on Route 6. It's a $30 million project. And because of the infrastructure bill, we're able to move it up. And we're actually going to be starting construction here probably the beginning of April. It's a 2-year job, but it's a project where if we wouldn't have the funds, it would have impacted projects down the line. And just to note, on Monday, we're having a press conference with Senator Casey and my boss, Deputy Secretary Mike Kaiser, at our stockpile at the Casey Highway to kind of kick off the project, kick off the bipartisan infrastructure law and what it means for District 4. So this is a great dry run for me for the press conference. So thank you for that. But Senator Casey wants to highlight what we're doing here in District 4. So we have that. We have the Green Ridge Street project in Lackawanna County. That's a bridge. In Luzerne County, we have the Sansui Parkway, which is out and around the Nanacoke area. That's a $40 million highway reconstruction project that we had on our plans that we're now able to fully fund and look at the options that we need to do. We're looking at Route 309 over the Susquehanna River on the Cross Valley. That's a very large bridge that those of you that drive it know that it needs some work, and the bridge is safe, but it needs to be made very well again. We're looking at doing some pavement repairs on Interstate 81, as I mentioned earlier, in Luzerne County, from the basically from the rock cut there on around exit 160 through the rest area down towards 8081. We're going to be doing some concrete repairs. We have other bridges on Route 309 in Luzerne County that we're going to be focusing on. North Main Avenue in Lackawanna County we're going to be addressing. Again, I mentioned a resurfacing job of 15 miles of Interstate 81 from basically exit 190, which is right around, I think, Dixon City to the Susquehanna County line. That's a $30 million paving project of the interstate that those of you that have been kind of north of Scranton know that it needs to be done. There's also another project that is not under our purview, but it's called the Scram Beltway. And this is a turnpike project. They're leading the project. And it's putting in 2 high-speed interchanges right around the airport and around Clark Summit, where those people that are traveling through the area will have the option to get off of Interstate 81, get on the northeast extension of the turnpike, maybe get around some congestion, and then travel their way down north or south, how they're going. We're
Rich, that's
participating in that financially. Go ahead.
That's a great point for everybody here. We've heard about that thing. Is the turnpike going to turn over that section of the northeast extension to PennDOT? Is that what the plan is?
No, the plan is really access from Interstate 81 to the northeast extension, and then
Okay.
kind of like a beltway around Scranton, if you will, or a leg of a beltway. And our participation is how that intersects with Interstate 81, because what we're seeing is 70,000 cars a day on Interstate 81 and a lot of congestion at times. And until we get to those large projects, we're just not going to have a solution, where the northeast extension only has maybe 10,000 cars a day. So they have a lot of extra capacity. So if you're someone that's going from Canada to Florida, and maybe you see this congestion, maybe you get off at Clark Summit when you're coming south, and you could get right on back, I think right around the airport. And that's just to kind of help you maybe kind of get on your way. But it's still going to be turnpike facility. It's going to be tolled, the whole bit.
Yeah, we had heard the rumors, and everyone was interested. I know a lot of people, economic development, were interested in whether or not the tolls were going to go away and it was going to become a PennDOT road. So that clarifies it a lot.
No, it's still going to be tolled. What happened is during the pandemic, the turnpike stopped work on it just because they were unsure of funding and levels there. But just towards the end of last year, they kicked off that project again. So now the job is back in active design status, and it's working its way through. But that's a project where, you know, I think, Susan, that's probably a $120+ million project. And we have, is that fair?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a big project, and we're participating. I think $40 million of it is coming from state funds. So being able to fund that is, you know, I'll let people decide if that's a good or bad thing, but that's something that we're going to look towards doing. So there's a long list of projects. Like I said, I highlighted some of the big ones here in Lackawanna and Luzerne. Naturally, every county in our district, Susquehanna, Wyoming, Wayne, and Pike, also have projects. It's just not to the level that of Lackawanna and Luzerne because of the funding. But we have new starts and new projects getting underway. For us here in District 4, we're going to do about $266 million worth of projects in calendar year 2022. And to give you that perspective, we average about, and again, it could change on the year, but we average about 125 to 175 million a year. So right now we're going to be doing about $266 million dollars. And as Mike mentioned, we'd love to do more and more of it, but that's what we have based on the fiscal constraints of where we're at.
I think it's important to interject. Rich mentioned this, but I want to put a finer point on it. The Turnpike 81 project is high speed. So it won't be the traditional cloverleaf ramps and going through traffic lights on 315 and DuPont and up in Clark Summit with the endless, cloverleafs. This is going to be high speed. So you'll go from 81 to the Turnpike, either at Clark Summit or DuPont, without slowing down. No toll booths, just high speed gantries. And if we can peel off 10 or 12,000 vehicles a day out of 81 and put them onto the Northeast extension in either direction, it gives us a little bit more relief with respect to traffic congestion on 81 as it goes around Scranton.
Thanks, Mike. That's great, Rich. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Again, I wish everything was starting tomorrow, but I realize, you know, that's not the case. But when I see what we have on our drawing boards, and just so everybody knows, we don't have drawing boards anymore. Everything's computerized. But if you could see what we have on our computers, we have a lot going on, and it's exciting. There is a lot happening here for Lackawanna and Luzerne County. Again, when you talk about the rail, all the other things that are coming with this bill. And the one thing I'll end with is, and this is something that is new to me, but I don't know if it's new to federal legislation, but there are a lot of competitive pots of money in this federal infrastructure bill that states will compete for. I think we all know of a thing called an infra grant or a tiger grant or those types of things, but there's new pots of money for mega projects, for economically important and viability projects that states will apply to the Federal Highway Administration and compete with. And I know our staff in central office is starting to kind of put together the rules of engagement on how we're going to do that. So we're not competing against each other internally, because then we got to compete with 49 other states for it. So Secretary Buttigieg mentioned that on Sunday on 60 Minutes, because they were asking about how is it going to be politically divided, and you know, he gave the proper answer. But we have to be aggressive, and that's what we've been telling all of our planning partners. If you think there's a local project in the city of Scram or Wilkes-Barre or Hazelton that is tied to economics, tied to jobs, tied to multimodalism, tied to whatever, we need to start thinking about writing some grant applications and being aggressive, especially with Senator Casey, who's a proponent of this, and making our voice known in Washington that we want to compete for these dollars. So the money that I talked about is guaranteed. But there are other pots of money, and when I look at the list, I mean, everything ends with billions, right? There's billions of dollars that are available for highway and bridge and other type of needs that I think we need more people looking into it, because that will just bring more money and projects back to PA. But you got to realize, you know, every city I'm sure has a project. Well, if we could do this bridge, it would really open up this area. You times that by 50 states, everyone has that. So how do we make that tie to pedestrian traffic, transit? You know, how do we relate it to reducing emissions? How do economic viability? All those things. So we're going to really need some very skilled and talented grant writers and application preparers to see if we could compete, because that is money that's out there. And I think as a state, we, regardless of party, we want to go after it. And to me, that's another part of it that I haven't seen in federal bills, but not that I haven't been that closely watching previous bills. But this one, there is a list. We had a call with Senator Casey about 2 months ago, and his staff has been on top of it. And they showed us a list of about 13 pots of money where people could compete for it. And I think we have to be aggressive as a Commonwealth to do that. And I don't know is this something Senator Casey's going to take on or somebody else, but we really need to make sure that we're coordinating our efforts to do that. So that's exciting.
It is, and everybody on this Zoom meeting that is involved in economic development, we need to coordinate this with Congressman Cartwright and Muser and
Sure.
Senator Casey, and that's really important stuff, Rich. Let's go after some more of this money that's available. Lana, I think you want to probably do some questions now.
Yeah, we have a few minutes for questions. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome, Rich.
I'm sure there's other questions.
Oh, there is. Thank you. Carol Kike Valley Distributing. How are you? Susan, Rich,
Hi,
thanks
Carol.
for the presentation. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, we're the Polish on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, we are.
We're all Irish today.
We're all Irish today.
McCloskey.
I used to be Kotlaski. So a couple quick questions. So like say if the chambers wanted to once again engage in providing more, you know, feedback, public feedback, you know, to the MPO, we would in the past provide a priority list, right? So if we wanted to, you know, do that again, where do we start with the tip with the 4-year plan, or do we go to the long range plan as we look at the projects that you say that are out there?
So, yeah, like we tried to talk about the long range plan, what Rich had talked about with the bid bill. It'll bring projects forward. So we're looking at those outer year projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the subject of multimodal, like we also used to have, you know, elements of the rail freight. So do any of these dollars go into the state's RFAP program for rail freight assistance program?
Yeah,
And I think there used to be a person in your office. Yeah. Okay. So that'll.
Yeah, there's still going to be multimodal grants.
Yeah.
There's still going to be liquid fuels money that go to municipalities.
Okay.
It's still going to be there. The multimodal may increase depending on how the transit, the rules are there. So
Right.
that's still going to be around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the public transit side, so it's like, say for instance, if we're successful with the Amtrak into Scranton, or even just the public transit system in Luzerne County, are any of these dollars, especially with the EV stations, so was available for public transit with the opportunity to move buses all to electric vehicles, tie them into an intermodal system to the train? And is there a public match on a local match on any of these?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think there is a great opportunity to tie that. I think just in the fall of last year, there was a groundbreaking for the new multimodal center in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and I'll have to deflect a little bit because we have a deputate in PennDOT under Jenny Lewis, who is our deputy secretary, and she kind of handles a lot of that. It's I don't want to say we're just highways and bridges, but I'm not that.
Okay.
We have the grants and we participate, but I would imagine there's always going to be a match at some point. I doubt there's going to be 100% federal, but we're still learning the rules of engagement for this. I mean, because there are competitive grants for bus and bus facilities, and we just don't know from federal highways, is it 80-20? Is it 80-15-5? Is it 100% grant? We don't have that yet. And I don't know, Susan, we don't have any of that yet. I'm accurate there?
No, I mean, in any of the prior infrastructure bills, we have to wait for, the regulations. We have to wait for the rules. We have to, the new title to be written and explained to us. If it's similar funding scenarios, there are certain flavors of funds that do require a match. Some you can use 100% federal funding for. Sometimes in your interstate program, the higher classification NHS funding, you can use 100% federal funding, but that's not out yet, and we're still working through those rules.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, because I'm not sure. So is this funding available only for state roads, or can municipalities apply for local roads?
So again, we have to wait for all the rules, but going on the assumption of the previous rules, yes, local roads and bridges are eligible with certain criteria. That's applied. Not all local roads can qualify for all of the flavors of funding. We've talked about K routes before. I know, or if they're federal aid routes, they have greater flexibility in receiving funding. But some other flavors of funding, like safety money, can be distributed in any place on a public road for that, as long as it has that safety improvement aspect to it. And then bridges are, of course, qualifying with certain criteria that are met. And again, that's the prior rules, but we're going right now on the assumption that these rules will still apply, but we're still working through those details.
And then where do we?
Carol, just hold on one second. Susan, do you mind if we go a little bit over here?
I'm here as long as you need. Yeah.
No, because these are great questions. I want Carol to continue, and anyone else that has any questions.
I only have one more, and then I'll let someone else ask questions.
No. Listen, by the way, Alana had to leave. She's the chairman of our group. She has an internal PPL call, so I'll continue to moderate here. So Carol, continue to go on as long as Rich and Susan will stay on. And please, I'm encouraging anyone else that has any questions, we'll stay on as long as Rich and Susan can. Go ahead, Carol.
Thanks, Tom. And then where do we find the schedule for the MPO meetings?
On the Lackawanna Luzerne Transportation website, I do have the schedule. There's actually a meeting coming up here in April. They meet quarterly.
Okay.
Right now, they're combining technical and coordinating committee meetings. The next one's set for April. And then, of course, like I said, quarterly, July and October.
Carol, hold on one second. I see Representative Boback has her hand up. So, Karen, go ahead. Karen, go ahead. Karen?
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
It was just, I apologize. It was just a commercial break. I complained about the potholes, but Rich, you have to know, your staff is exemplary. I have to throw out some of the names. I mean, Brian Smalls, Mark Yeager. Any time of the day, night, I call those two gentlemen. Somebody is there to rectify a problem. So again, just a commercial break. Kudos to you. Your office is wonderful. No matter what I call about, they're there. The letters that we send, you send us back. And that's so important for us with our constituent services. So just to say thank you. Thanks for this little commercial, Tom. I appreciate it.
Karen,
Thank you, Rich.
Karen, you are so
you.
right. We have such a great staff and working group at District 4, and Rich and Susan have been phenomenal in every aspect of what we need. So thank you for reminding us to thank them, Karen. Carol, go ahead if you had any other questions. I didn't want to cut you off, but as long as we could stay here.
Nothing more for me right now, but thank you.
Okay. One question that someone texted me, Rich. Are you guys going to add any additional staff because of all this funding? It's hard to get projects reviewed because of so much that's going on. Is that going to back you guys up more? Have you, Susan, Rich, any plans for more staffing?
Yeah, right now, that is not something that we're thinking about. We are supplemented through our normal program through the use of consultants. And we are not going to hire more PennDOT employees, if you will. We will probably employ more consultants to help us do different types of things like reviews, maybe manage construction projects or manage part of construction projects or be a part of that to supplement, because then we're able to use them for a certain period of time. Because we have to remember, after 5 years, we go back to prior levels.
Yeah, I know.
So unless there's something federally in the next 5 years, in 5 years from now, we're going to be back going, all right, we're going to have a call like this and we're going to say, well, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
So
You
for
guys
right now, it's just through the use of consultants.
Yeah, you guys do a phenomenal job. You know, we at Borton Lawson do a lot of work with you, and somebody wanted me to ask, because you do turn projects around really well, and I just wanted to know, with all this additional funding and projects, was there going to be something more in staffing? It's going to be,
and we'll look internally first, you know, through
Yeah.
our resources, but our consultant, you know, our consultant staff. There was I remember when Secretary Beeler was Secretary of Transportation, he had a slide where it said about 75 cents of every dollar that PennDOT gets goes to private industry. And I never heard it that way, but when you think of, you know, we buy asphalt, we buy concrete, we buy road salt, we buy trucks, we buy cars, we have contractors, we have consultants, we have suppliers, we have all sorts of things that when you look at how much, you know, when you look at the economic driver that PennDOT is by managing the system, but just through our budgets, 75 cents of every dollar has an impact to the private sector, which I think we're proud of. When you think of we're a $10 billion a year agency. So
tremendous.
Yeah.
Any more questions, please? Speak up. Don't be shy. This is a great time and a great discussion that's going on here.
Tom, I have two items. This is Bill Joyce from the Greater Pittston Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, Bill. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Go ahead.
Rick, I have two items that are close to the Greater Pittston Chamber of Commerce. And there's one that I think, based upon this conversation, I don't know that it exactly fits where you're working on, but I'll ask in any event, and maybe you can point us in the right direction. We have a fully funded intersection project. It's on Route 11 in McAlpine there in Avoca, and it's slated, I think, in 2025 or 2026. Representative Carroll helped us get it approved and get it funded. Is there any chance that something like that could be moved up? You know, there's a parcel of land on McAlpine Street that we're looking to develop. We think it can have a large economic impact in the Greater Pittston area, and just wondering if maybe that's something that, you know, we would talk to you about, maybe moving it up, or who we would reach out to about that.
I remember talking about that project. I don't know if it was with Representative Carroll or not, but I don't have it right off the top. I don't know if Susan, you have something We could look into it though. I don't
Okay.
have that one.
Yeah.
Unless Susan, you, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, we
I-
would have to look into it to see where we stand. I know there was railroad coordination with that intersection improvement, and that is one of our difficult processes when we talk about
Yeah.
making improvements to roads and highways.
Yeah, that-
And getting the PUC involved. So, but we could check into that and see where we stand with that project.
And
That's a
what I
great
would
question.
say, Bill,
Yeah.
if you could send your information to Ben at the chamber,
Yeah.
at least an email or something, and then if you could email that to me, we'll get back to you next week. We'll look into it. Like I said, I know I have a file on McAlpine, but I just don't remember the.
Yeah.
specifics.
Even those of us don't live in Pittston, Bill, know about the McAlpine. We all know about it. We know about that large parcel down the road that everybody. likes to
Infamous.
get-
And-
Yeah,
and-
it's,
and
it really,
And
Go ahead, Rich.
really, what we need to really all be mindful of is getting the extra money. We still have to go through our processes, right?
Sure.
We still have to go through environmental, right of way, railroad. You know, more money doesn't free those processes up. It just, actually, it may clog them because we have more processes going through maybe one or two people at a railroad.
Sure.
But we'll work through that. But if you want to get your information to Ben, Bill, we'll take a look at it and get back to you.
Okay.
What,
Terrific.
Bill, what you have to remember on that was not a traditionally funded project from PennDOT. That was multimodal money that Avoca applied for. So
Okay.
it's a lot funkier than the traditional PennDOT intersection improvement. And
Okay.
so there's complicating factors there when it comes to Avoca Borough and the source of the funds. So I did everything I could to advance that project and get it funded. The funding part we took care of, trying to work through the machinations of Avoca and PennDOT and the consultants is the challenge.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mike.
absolutely. And
We'll
Thanks,
get you
you
a
know,
summary.
without your involvement, it definitely, probably wouldn't have happened, and I just didn't
Bill,
know, hearing the long-term nature of these projects and if we can advance them that way, I didn't know if this would be something that would fall into that bucket or not,
See? Yeah.
Yeah, Billy, you had another question?
Yeah, and it ties into the bridges in Pittston. If there's any commentary or perhaps even a follow-up that we could have offline about the Fort Jenkins Bridge in Pittston and what the anticipated, maintenance and longevity of that bridge is, as we're already down the Water Street Bridge, and just to see what that looks like.
Yeah, just
Great.
quick on Fort Jenkins Water Street. As you know, the county bridge is closed, and we're looking at our facility, and we have a consultant on board who has provided us internally with some options, and those options include having both bridges in place. So I know
Okay.
there was talk about maybe going to one, but we feel like there is going to be a need for two. I was contacted by the acting county manager for Luzerne,
Romelda.
Ramila,
Yeah.
sorry. And we're going to set up a meeting with her and her planning staff to go over those options, and we're getting ready to go out to the public with those.
Okay.
I know Ramilda wanted to look at, is there anything we could do to open up that county bridge or to do something to improve traffic? And we are going to look at some options. But we have to realize that we're probably 4 to 5 years away from being in construction. And
Okay.
what do we do between now and then?
Okay.
Thanks, Rich.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
We kind of want to go through the county because that's kind of our process. We did stuff internally. We'll talk with the county, we'll talk with elected officials, and then we'll go public.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank
Rich.
you very much for that information.
Any more questions? So anybody else that we didn't get to recognize yet, please speak up.
8091.
Mark? No? Anyone else?
That's all right.
Okay, well, yeah, but we could go forever with you guys, and we
Sure.
really, so we're just gonna say thank you. First of all, Rich and Susan, we can't thank you guys enough. People in economic development, Carol Kipe is one that does know about this because she does do so, and a lot of you others do too, but it is so important to work with PennDOT. These economic development projects we want to move forward in Northeastern PA really depend on transportation. And they do a phenomenal job, but like Rich and Susan said, they need your input. And the MPO is the place to do it. The explanation that Susan gave about how that works, the basic premise is that if they don't hear from us and we don't put projects on that list, they never get done. They don't get funded. And that's the simple way of saying what Susan was trying to do is lead us through a very complicated process. So we need to be able to put projects together and put them on that long-range plan to ultimately get them to a point where we can fund them, because all of the leaders in our community, not just PennDOT, but elected officials and others, get involved in these decisions about where that money goes to do these projects. So please believe me when I tell you, this is a very, very important part of what all of you want to do for our economic development in Northeastern Pennsylvania. I want to thank Mike, Carol, and Eddie Pashinsky and Karen Bobeck for being on the call with us. Always great to have our state representatives with us. And again, Alana for facilitating this whole meeting with Ben in the Wilkes-Barre Chamber. Alana was on the Lackawanna County call, and Rich and Susan thought it was just great and that we should do it for Luzerne County. So we appreciate Alana bringing that to us and for us to have this call today. Anyone else have anything else for the good of the order here?
Just a big thank you from me to all of you guys. I appreciate all the good work you guys do. And also to Sammy, who certainly retired, and Paul Menendez, who is now taking his place again. Very, very quick to respond to any of the concerns that we have. Really enjoy working with all of you. And if there's anything that I can do, please don't ever hesitate. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Eddie. You and Mike and Karen have been just tremendous for us, and we, especially with these PennDOT issues. So we thank you so much. Okay, I guess that's it. Ben, you have anything to say to close it up, and it's yours to shut down.
No, thank you everybody for joining us again today. And I put my email in the chat. If anybody had any follow-up questions that you want to send, please send it my way and we'll get that out.
Thanks again, Rich, Susan, appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day, everybody. Happy
Okay.
St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.